And I have spent the last half an hour rewatching that 3v3 NHL All-Star game you played in. So.
Oh yeah, that was a blast.
We're going to get into that. I mean, I'm going to need you to chirp one of your teammates pretty hard at some point. But they're an alumni of this show, so you can. So you're going to be one of two people that I'm going to ask you a question about.
I'm excited.
So if we start all the way back in the beginning, growing up in Canada, obviously hockey is going to be a massive part of your life from the get-go. When did you remember hockey coming into your life?
Yeah, hockey's obviously huge over in Canada, and a lot of families grow up with it, generations and generations. But for my family, actually, no one played hockey in my family. But I had a friend who lived about like 5 houses down the road, and she came from a family who was crazy hockey family. And so she was always outside on her rollerblades playing road hockey. And so I joined her. And then I think it was when I was about 7 years old, she was like, you should try ice hockey. And my parents were pretty foreign to it. They had never had even ice skated before, really, I don't think. So anyways, nonetheless, they got me skates and equipment, and I went out there and I started to play, and I fell in love with it. So definitely not something that I was born into, but something that I fell in love to, like the moment I was able to get on the ice and skate.
A lot of times people fall in love with something by watching it on the TV first and then saying, I want to have a go. But you kind of seem like you came into it a different way then.
Yeah, definitely. I have to give all credit to my good friend who got me into the sport. I never knew it would take me as far as it did. I just played it for the love of the game, my teammates. So it's pretty amazing to look back and see like how far I came and like the route I took, even though, no one in my family really even knew about hockey.
And when you started playing it, did you then start to watch it on the TV? And did you gravitate to a certain team with a certain players who you like start to look up to, sort of thing?
Yeah, definitely. Thankfully, hockey's on the TV all the time. So I did grow up watching the NHL, and I got to cheer for my hometown Toronto Maple Leafs. So I watched them growing up. And anytime I got the chance to go down to Toronto and watch a game live was super special. The atmosphere was always really fun. But I think what really kind of like sparked a dream for me was when I had the opportunity to watch the Canadian national team. I was pretty young at the time, but I remember the 2002 Olympics, and Team Canada for men's and women's both won gold that year. And I remember just the hype around that and like seeing them celebrate their championship, and like realizing that women could play at a high level and play in the Olympics was really what like sparked my dream, and just made me think like, oh, I want to go to the Olympics one day. I didn't necessarily know if it'd be for hockey, but I just knew that, I wanted to get there.
Because from like reading up on you, because you do your research for you were into all kinds of sports, weren't you, when you were younger?
Yeah, I just played everything. Like my parents put me in anything, and I just loved to compete. I think that was the biggest thing for me. I was competitive with my siblings, so anytime I got to take it out on the field or on the ice, it was even bigger competition. So yeah, hockey, soccer, volleyball, basketball. I ran track. I did it all. So yeah, like I always say to people, I had this dream to go to the Olympics. I didn't really know what sport I was going to do it in, but I was just like determined to get there. And then it wasn't until like high school that it kind of all worked out, and I had the opportunity to try out for Team Canada that like, I was like, okay, I guess it'll be for hockey.
Because you had to choose between hockey and soccer, didn't you, at some point?
Yeah. When I was at the end of grade 11, I had to make a decision. I was lucky enough to play both sports at a high level up until then, but then there were scholarship opportunities down in the States, and it would be nearly impossible to play both sports down there. So I ended up going with hockey and choosing Clarkson University. And that's really where like I really started to develop as a player, is once I focused on that one sport.
And there was a pretty big change you made as well then, because from what I've read, and I'm getting to the end of what I've read at the minute, so you can be able to fill in more gaps in it. You made the change from forward to defenseman. That's a pretty big change going into college.
Yeah. Well, I'd say I was always like a defensive forward. Uh, I like was always the first one back. I like kind of liked the back check, which seems so weird. Like who likes the back check? But I like to like use my speed and chase players. So yeah, right before university, my coaches were like, I was moving up an age group, and to make the top team, they were like, Renata, you're only going to make this team if you play defense. And at the time, I had like, throughout my career, I was always like that first forward who went back to help out on the D end if we were on the penalty kill or something like that. But I never played full time. And so I was trying to make that team, and they said we need a defenseman, so you're gonna have to play defense if you want to be on this team. And I was like so taken off guard. I didn't know if I really wanted to do that. But in the end, it was probably the best decision I could have made, because I was able to like see the whole ice. When you're playing defense, like everything's in front of you, so you can really get a good picture of the game, and like you can make really good reads. So I think it was a smart transition for me. And then obviously my defensive side of the game came out a little bit more. And it also provided so many more opportunities for me. I don't know if I would have gotten a scholarship or played for Team Canada if I stayed on forward. So all in all, I'm happy with the move back to D.
Another one of the big things, and I assume players are just too nice to mention this, that if you play in defense, you get to play more minutes than forwards do.
Exactly. It's way more fun. You get to play more minutes. And I always say the D are a lot more calm than the forwards. Like it's always like chaos at the forward end of benches on teams, and the D are just always so chill and like having a good time, laughing back there. And then like the forwards, just chaos. So, but at the same time, D always get blamed for everything. So
it's always the D and the goalie's fault.
Exactly. Yeah, we can't catch a break.
Like you say, like you say, the forwards is chaos. Netminders are a breed of their own. They're chaos, and and like I said, the defensemen are like the calm in the middle.
That's how I like to think. We're just the chill. You know, we don't necessarily go with the flow, but you know, like we're just easygoing, and we just do what we're told, I guess.
And then what a lot of people over here I don't think realize is just how big college sports is in North America. So obviously when you're picking which college you want to go to, that's a pretty big decision. What was it that took you to Clarkson?
Yeah. So I'd say down in the States, college sports are huge. You can get full scholarships, and men's and women are really treated equal down at the university level. And so when you're in about grade 10 or 11, you start to get like emails and phone calls from coaches from different universities across the States. And you just learn about like their programs that they offer, get to know the coaching staff. And then if you're lucky, you can head down and you can visit the university and meet the team and check out the campus and all their facilities. So yeah, that happens at about grade 10 and grade 11. And then usually players commit around the grade 11, grade 12. So for me, like I mentioned before, I was still looking at soccer options as well as hockey options in grade 10. So I had visited a couple for both soccer and hockey. But ultimately for me, what it came down to was the coaching staff and how close the school was to home for me. So it wasn't too close. Like Clarkson is about 5 hours from where I live. So it's still a little bit of a drive, but it was like doable for my parents to come down and watch games. And we were still pretty close to Canada. And then, like I mentioned, the coaching staff was just so nice. They were so easy to talk to. And then a great academic program. And then we also had like a developing team, which my sophomore year, we ended up winning the national championship. So it was a team that, you know, I wouldn't say necessarily, I guess it was a growing program, which is exciting to be a part of something that had a lot of growth in it.
And who's your big rival when you're at Clarkson? Because all colleges have their own rival, don't they?
Yeah. So our biggest rival is St. Lawrence University, and they're about 5 miles down the road from us. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a huge history between St. Lawrence and Clarkson, a huge rivalry. It's super fun to play each other because all the local fans, like both towns that the schools are in, are pretty small towns, but the fans just love hockey, and we always get a good turnout for men's and women's games for the SLU Clarkson matchup.
And because in those kind of games, something crazy usually always happens. So what's the craziest experience you had in one of those rivalry games?
The craziest experience. I'm trying to think. There's so many that happen against St. Lawrence. I mean, there's always some like tussles, a lot of tussles and stuff. But I think some of the craziest things that happened when we played St. Lawrence was their coach was like, he just had different tactics, and he used to pull his goalie whenever. So like, I remember this one time we were playing them and we were ahead by a goal, and it was in the second period, and it was like the middle of the second period, and it was there was a face off in our zone. And we didn't even realize, but he pulled their goalie, and it was like the second period in the middle of it, and he pulled their goalie. So they had 6 skaters out, and like the puck dropped, and we didn't even realize the net was empty at the other end. So I just think things like that were like, looking back, it was crazy. But yeah, anytime we played SLU, great atmosphere, always close games, passion, a lot of passion.
That does help. But when you've got a crowd in there that's almost hostile, and it's like on top of you and it's loud, that just G's you up that little bit more, doesn't it?
Oh, of course, definitely. When you can hear the fans in the stands, like when you're in games where it's so loud that you can't even like hear what's going on, it's just like you get out there and you're so excited to go and put on a good show, hopefully, for everyone who's there cheering.
And you kind of just glossed over your sophomore season then, but that was pretty special because you won the NCAA Championship, and that was the first NCAA Championship in Clarkson's history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I dropped it in there a little quietly. Yeah, no, I was super lucky to be a part of the 2014 National Championship with Clarkson, and it was our school's first Division I, or actually, I think first national championship ever. And since then, they've actually won 2 more. I wasn't a part of those teams, but it was pretty crazy. We were underdogs. We played the Minnesota Gophers in the final, which if you know much about women's college hockey, I'd say Minnesota Gophers and like Wisconsin Badgers are like 2 of the like top NCAA programs. They're super strong. They get a lot of good recruits. So anyways, we were playing Minnesota in the finals. Definitely underdogs. I think they took us a little bit lightly, maybe. I know there was a statement that was put out before the game, like the Gophers decide to wear their white jerseys because they don't have a national championship photo in their whites. They only have it in their golds and their maroons. And we were like, that fired us right up. Like, oh, they think they're winning already. Like, we couldn't believe it. So it was a wild game. I think we won 5-4. There were some really pretty goals in that game. And yeah, it was just pretty surreal. We had a special group of girls, a lot of girls that were graduating that year, and it was their last run. So it's definitely a year that I'll never forget. I learned a ton about what it takes to win a championship, and I'll always look back on that year for sure.
Were you treated like queens on campus after you win that?
We liked to think so. I think we might have annoyed some people. We came back from winning that national championship, and the town was amazing. The support was incredible. There was signs up all over storefronts congratulating us. I think the fire truck and the police escorted us in. They had a big rally for us, and it was pretty cool. But I think we dragged it on a little bit too long post winning, and we'd go to the bars and we wouldn't stand in line. We'd try to go to the front and be like, we won a national championship. But so we definitely dragged it on a little bit. But I mean, you won a championship.
I can't fault you at all. So is that championship what kind of put you on Canada's radar then, internationally? Because I think from there you went into the development team.
Yeah, I'd say so for sure. So I had actually attended a couple national team camps prior to that year, my sophomore year at Clarkson, but I had never made a roster. So I played that national championship game. Our top defender was injured, and we actually had a really short roster. So we only had 4 defensemen for the last half of playoffs, and that's all that was on our bench was 4 defensemen on the back end. So we were playing a ton of big minutes, and I was put in situations all over the ice. And I think after that year, obviously Hockey Canada was watching and scouting, and that's what gave me the opportunity to really crack a spot on the development roster. So from there, that summer, I made my first development roster, got to go over to Germany over Christmas and play in the 5 Nations Cup, which was an incredible experience. And then that following fall in 2015, I had the opportunity to play on the senior national team for an event, which was cool to be playing with some of my role models from when I was young. But I would definitely say that my sophomore year was a big year for my career.
And when you get to go away to a tournament in Germany, does that's like a different world? Like, you getting to leave North America for the first, I imagine, is that the first time you properly leave North America?
I had traveled outside of North America before, but that was the first time for hockey, which was pretty neat. And I had never competed against any other nation. I'd only ever I'd only ever really played Canadian teams or down in the States, like American universities. So it was pretty special. I'll always remember that tournament. It's fun to see too, because every nation kind of has a different style of play that's unique to them. Like Finland always plays like kind of like a trap style of play. And then you have Russia, who is like very aggressive, and they come at you hard. So yeah, it's fun to play internationally because you just see a whole bunch of players that you've never played against, and they're really skilled, and there's some different styles of play. So yeah, it's pretty fun to come overseas and play.
And when you get that taste in that development team, is that when you like get that thing of, I want to stick around in this program for as long as I can? I want to make, like, that you get the taste of it. Like, you always want to do it, but then when you get the taste of on the verge of the senior side, I imagine that's when it really lights a fire inside you. Oh
yeah, definitely. Like, when I had that taste of putting on that Team Canada jersey for the first time, it was like the feeling you get is just not like anything else. It's a huge honor, and the Hockey Canada's program is so professional, and you get treated so well by like staff and everyone. So I just think, like having my first opportunity at the development level was like, wow, like this is special. This means something. Like I want to be a part of this program. I want to go to the Olympics. I want to represent Canada. And now that I've fulfilled that, I'm just even hungrier to continue to improve as a player and hopefully continue to make an impact on the team.
And after you go to that development team the first time, you've still got 2 years left in college to go with the Golden Knights, and you get named an assistant captain. What did that mean to you?
Yeah, going back to Clarkson was and having a letter on my jersey was special. It put me in a leadership role, which I learned a ton. I got to like interact with players in a different way, like on board our newer players, and just hopefully like lead by example. And I think that's something that I always try my hardest to do. And to have been, I guess, awarded to wear a letter was like special, because I guess my hard work paid off, and I was able to like continue to do what I do, but people were noticing it. So it was special. And I think anytime you get the opportunity to be a part of a leadership program on the team, it means a lot, but you also have responsibility with that.
So as your time in college is coming to a close, you've got 2 pretty big things on the horizon. You've got the draft is coming up, and there's also, I imagine, you've got half an eye on the World Championships at that point.
Yeah.
So how do you
Sorry, can you repeat that? I think it just cut out a bit there.
I say you've got the draft to prepare for and the World Championships. I imagine you've got an eye on those World Championships with the senior side as well. So how do you prepare for those 2 things? Because you've also got to get ready for the draft. You've got to get ready for your potential first CWHL season. But I know from speaking to Natalie and Sarah that the process to get into the Team Canada senior side is a long, arduous process.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, I graduated from Clarkson, was drafted to the Toronto Furies, which I was happy to be kind of local and play for my hometown team. But like I'm sure other girls mentioned, obviously my eyes were to make the World Championship team at the senior national level. And it's a kind of a big transition coming out of university and playing in the CWHL. Your schedule is different, your resources are different. You have a big age difference in your teammates. There's just so much that's different about the year. So it was a little bit of a tough transition, but I think it was a hard transition because I had put so much pressure on myself to still develop as a player. So I had that opportunity to make that World Championship roster. Because I'm sure the other girls had mentioned, sometimes when you get into the senior national program, you don't make every team. Like, you can get released from some teams and make other teams. So that was happening to me over the last couple of years prior to that. I'd make like a team in the fall, the senior level, and then I wouldn't make the World Championship team. So I was hungry for it that year I graduated from university. And I was lucky to have a teammate like Natalie Spooner, who was our captain with the Toronto Furies, and also obviously a staple on the national team. So to kind of learn from her in my first year out of university really helped me to ultimately crack a spot on that roster.
Now, speaking of Natalie, she's been on this show. She is a bundle of positive energy, as you seem to be as well. Tell me about Natalie on that, playing with her as a teammate.
Yeah, you said it right there. She's just a bundle of positive energy. Like, she is always smiling, the biggest smile on her face. Like, she's up to do anything. She's always having fun. Like, it doesn't matter what situation we're in. She's just like high energy and like makes everyone in the dressing room laugh. So she's someone you want around in the dressing room all the time. Because she makes funny jokes. I don't even know if she's trying to make the jokes sometimes, but so yeah, a great teammate, and I'm lucky to have played with her on the Toronto Furies a whole bunch, and then also on the national team as well.
So, and how did you find the CWHL? Because obviously that's one thing ticked off the list. Is I'm going to make a go at this as a professional. Then you get drafted to the CWHL, you play in it. How did you find it as a league?
Yeah. Like I mentioned, obviously a big transition from college, but nonetheless, like it was a great opportunity to grow as a player and continue playing after university, and play against like a ton of quality players who I never had the opportunity to play against in university. So it was awesome. We got to travel down to Boston, out to Calgary, to Montreal, and the games were always tight. I wouldn't say our team was the best team. Our record wasn't great when I played for the Furies, but it was fun to be a part of that group of girls and to fight every single night. And I got to play a lot of big minutes, which helped my development for sure. So the league, obviously there's some areas that needed improvement in terms of resources and professionalism, but it did give us an area to play post-university, which was nice.
And then you cracked that World Championships roster. Talk me through the feelings. Is it a phone call? Do you get told in person? How are you told that you've made that World Championships roster?
Yeah, it's a phone call. And yeah, I'll never forget it. They called me and they said, congratulations, you've been selected to the 2017 Women's World Championship team. And at that time it was down in Plymouth, Michigan in the States. And I remember being so excited, thanking them for the opportunity and just really wanting to get off the phone as quick as possible so I could like tell my family that I made the roster. And it was a special moment for sure, and it was exciting to share that with everyone who had helped me along the way.
And at what point does it hit you that, oh, this might be the group they want to keep together for the Olympics? Because that's only a year.
Yeah. So I actually think that's what made it even more special. Was this is the last World Championships before the next Olympics. So I knew that I was in a pool of players that were going to be into contention for that 2018 Olympics. because prior to that, there was a lot of players that they were still selecting between. So to have made that roster, I still knew there was work that needed to be done in order to make the Olympics, but it gave me a sense of like a little bit more comfortable with where I was and who I was as a player. Given that, I also didn't get a lot of ice time at my first World Championship. So I was the seventh defenseman. I was young. I didn't see the ice a whole lot. So that was hard mentally. And heading into that Olympic year, I knew I needed to improve in certain areas so that I didn't have that feeling of not playing and not being the best player I could.
Even though you didn't get the ice time you probably wanted to get, I imagine just being around that group, away with the senior Canadian team, does you the world of good anyway, just to be around all of that.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. And I think that was one of the biggest things is like when you're young, sometimes like an experience like that is the best thing, because even though you didn't get, a whole lot of ice time, just to be around players of that caliber, professionals like that is an experience in itself. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, was just to see what the pace of the game was at that level. It almost like eased me into things, which was nice. Obviously, as athletes who we're all competitive, we want to be out there, we want to play big minutes, but sometimes you have to sit back and wait for your opportunity, I guess. But it's still important to kind of, I guess, learn from experiences.
And then how soon after the culmination of those World Championships were they looking at doing the Olympic roster?
Yeah, so I think it was so the way we do it heading into the Olympics is they bring 28 players in August of the Olympic year. So August 2017, for instance, they brought 28 players out to Calgary, Alberta, and that would be the pool of players that they would watch for the next like 6 months before the Olympics. So the World Championships happened in April. I think in May, they made phone calls to select their 28 players that would move out to Calgary in August. And then August through till December, it was a tryout period essentially, but we were all in one region so they could watch us all the time. So so that was like a stressful period from August to December, I would say, being watched every single day you're on the ice.
Because then you're plucked out of the CWHL at that point, aren't you? You're then put into that other division where you're playing against guys, aren't you?
Yeah. So that year, the 28 players that are selected, you don't play in your regular league that year. You just play with Hockey Canada, and we play in a boys midget AAA league out in Alberta, which has some quality teams. It's good competition for us, and we play a ton of games. Like I think we played maybe like 50 games between August and December, which is quite a heavy load. Given there is 28 players, so you don't play every single game, but you're still playing a lot.
So then when they're cutting down the roster to the final amount that they need, are you all together when they're doing that, or is that done on the phone as well?
Well, we're all together, but they're very strict about it. But we're not like, we're all in Calgary still, but they have a whole layout of a building of where you walk so no one crosses paths. It was actually kind of like a crazy day. Like I'll never forget it. It was December 22nd. So a couple days before Christmas.
Oh, that could ruin the holidays.
I know. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. So the night before they had sent out players' time slots of when you should arrive at the rink. And they were like spread out so no one would cross paths in the parking lot even. And I remember I was one of the last players on the list. So I was like, I don't know what this means. Like, I'm one of the last players. Like, I'm a rookie. Like, I don't know what this means. But anyway, so yeah, you arrived, you like walked through the building, and then you sat in these chairs to wait for your turn. And then once they were done with the person in front, they like came outside, grabbed you and brought you in. So it was stressful for sure. I honestly was a bubble player, so I didn't really know. I put in the hard work throughout those couple months, and I thought I had a great chance to make it, but ultimately you don't really know. So to hear the news that I was selected and I would live out that dream of competing at the Olympics was really surreal. When I think about it, it gives me chills. Like, it's pretty crazy to think about, but yeah, it made the holidays better, that's for sure.
I can imagine. So who's the first person you call when you find that out?
I called my mom. So I think my mom was like stressed that whole day. Like, she knew, she was back home and she knew what time my meeting was at, and I think she was just probably sitting there waiting for the phone to ring. So at the moment I got out of the offices, I called my mom. I was shaking still, and I remember just like crying to her, being like, I made it, and she was crying as well, which was funny. But she was so big in my hockey career. She was the one who drove me everywhere and took me to every sporting event. So it was exciting for her, and exciting for my whole family, who all got to come over to South Korea, which was fun.
I imagine that, and then when you get told yes, I imagine the only thing on your mind then is Pyeonchang. I imagine that's the only thing you can think about every day until you get on that plane to go there.
Yeah, it was. I think my initial reaction was like so much excitement, but then I was like, uh-oh, like, I'm playing on like the Olympic stage. Like, am I going to be nervous? I had no idea how I was going to react to actually getting over to South Korea and like stepping out on that ice for the first time. I remember being like pretty nervous, like, oh gosh, like, I hope I don't like screw up. Like, I hope the nerves are okay. But that's why we have a mental skills coach. So they help us with the nerves for sure. But it was, to my surprise, I actually was pretty calm when it came to game time. I was ready for things, I think.
And when you go over there, how much time do you get there before like the opening ceremonies happen and things like that?
Yeah, we went about, I forget, I think we went like, maybe it might have been 2 weeks before the opening ceremonies, just because it's such a big time change that we had to get adjusted. So we went over there. We stayed just outside of Seoul for about a week and a half, and then we drove across South Korea to where the Olympic Village was, and then we could enter the Olympic Village. So yeah, we spent quite a bit of time over there. But it was nice because they gave us some opportunities to travel while we were there. So we got to go to Seoul and sightsee a bit. And they were big about making the experience more than just the Olympics, like, or more than just hockey, I guess. Like, enjoy yourselves. Like, you're here. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Like, go see events, but just make sure you're ready to play.
And also in a group of hockey players, you're all friends. You all get on, but you can't hang out with everyone all the time at the same time. So who were your friends who you hung out with when you were out there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we did do a lot of things as a team, but I had, so the way the Olympic Village was set up is you had, Canada had like our own building. We had 2 buildings actually side by side, and men's and women's hockey was in one building, and in each floor there's an apartment with 4 people in it. So in my apartment I had Blair Turnbull, Jocelyn Larocque, and Brian Jenner. So I'd say I spent most of my Olympic experience with the 3 of them, just because we were all roommates, and anytime we went down to the cafeteria, we'd go together. But it was nice to kind of have a building full of just us Canadian athletes, and our team all like each floor was our team, like the first 9 floors or something. So we all hung out together, but those 3, I'd say, hung around a lot.
And then when did it hit you that, oh, I'm actually here? Is it at those opening ceremonies when you get to take part in them?
Gosh, yeah. I think it still felt surreal at the opening ceremonies. Like, those were crazy. That was a special moment, because I remember as a kid watching the opening ceremonies and like hearing like Canada being called into the stadium and watching like all these athletes from all around the world. I was so excited to be there, like looking into the camera, waving their flags. So that moment was special, but I don't think it hit me where I was. Like, I just, it was like a little party, and that's like all. And then I think what it really hit me was when we skated out for our first game of the tournament, and we were skating out, and our families were all standing on the balcony, and that's like the first thing we could all see when we skated out from the tunnel. So that was a pretty special moment, and probably when it hit me, like, wow, like, I'm here, I'm at the Olympics.
I think also, like you mentioned, you've got a mental skills coach, because it's kind of strange because like during the most of the year, you're fighting for attention as a professional women's sports person. And then when those Olympic Games come on, the spotlight's straight on and it burns so bright, especially in ice hockey for Canadians. How did you deal with that, with the spotlight being turned on to that extent?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, we have a mental performance coach, I guess, who travels with us a ton. And we do a lot of team sessions, but we also do a ton of individual sessions on building kind of our own individual plans on like what kind of triggers us, and like how we can like calm ourselves down in certain situations, or how we can like fire ourselves up for other situations. So it really is kind of like an experiment to see what works for you. But I'd say the mental performance side of the game is something like I neglected for a long time because I didn't realize how big of a part of the game it is. And for any sport, really, like the mental side is such a huge component. So for me, like heading into those Olympics, like I mentioned, I thought I was going to be really nervous when it came game time. And like, I thought I was going to freeze and not be able to perform with that spotlight. But working with that mental performance coach prior to arriving to South Korea, we were able to build like a plan for me. So for instance, just like one thing I did was, we got a different phone number, SIM card when we were over there. And what I tried to do was like not give many people from home my number, even my good friends and extended family, not because I didn't want to hear from them, but I was scared it was going to overwhelm me and make the stage feel even bigger than it actually was. So I tried to like not have too much contact with people from back home on game days and stuff like that. But yeah, I guess it was just kind of like trial and error to see like what's going to work for you and what's going to make you the most prepared and the most comfortable when that light is shining on you so bright.
And then before we get into the final of the Olympics, can we just agree that no championship game should ever be settled in a shootout ever, ever, ever?
Oh, don't get me started. Oh boy. Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that one. So nerve-wracking. Oh gosh.
But still, an incredible game between the two best teams in the world. It must have. I can't imagine how cool was it to be involved in that gold medal game.
Yeah, it was really cool. It's looking back on the game, it actually feels like I blacked out during the game. I don't know if like I just pushed the like game aside after because I like was so upset with the outcome and how it ended in a shootout. But looking back, like there's moments that stand out to me, but a lot of it's kind of a blur because it was just like it was pretty crazy. It was super special. We had matched up against Team USA, I think like must have been almost 8 times prior to that game that year already. So we had played them a ton. We were so familiar with each other. The rivalry was huge, like it always is. And I think Canada was feeling like the most confident we felt in a long time because we were on a really good winning streak against Team USA. I think we had won our last 5 games against them. So we were heading into that final, like ready to go. And for it to have gone to a 20-minute overtime and then ultimately go to a shootout where it kind of becomes an individual skill competition in an Olympic final is tough. But I guess during our preparation, we knew that there was a chance it could go to a shootout. Like that was just the reality, right? So we had to prepare for that.
And how much does that make you look forward to the next Olympics to kind of right that?
Yeah, I think coming off of that ice after we got our medals, like the thing that was like making me the most on edge was like, I have to wait 4 years for the opportunity to do this again. Like it was just like mind boggling. Like I just wanted to put my skates on and play like another game right away. Like I didn't want to, that was probably the hardest part is like thinking that there's still 4 years that we have in order to like get back on top at the Olympic level. So I think it made us all so hungry. And I think we have an amazing group of girls. We're getting close. The Olympics aren't too far away right now. And we have a great pool of girls, some really talented young players. And I think we all realize what our mission is and no one wants to feel that feeling we felt in 2018. So we're all hungry and excited for an opportunity to hopefully play under that spotlight again.
And after it's finished, as you say, it kind of leaves this bitter taste in your mouth, A, because you lost, and B, because of how it was decided. When do you, I imagine you never actually get over it, but when do you actually start to feel like, oh, I want to play hockey again now? Because I imagine after that initial feeling of, oh, I want to get on the ice straight away, it's then, oh, I don't want to play for X amount of time. And then I imagine, to me, that's how it would work, sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Like, in most scenarios, I totally think that that's what happens. Like, you lose a moment like that, and like you're fired up, you're excited right then, like to get back out there, but then like it dies off and you don't want to put on those skates again. But for some reason, like even talking to some of the other players, like I remember talking to Sarah Nurse a couple months after those Olympics, and like we were still so fired up, and we still like were really motivated and like wanted to get back out on the ice, because like that feeling was just so crummy that we just like didn't want to relive it. So like you said, like typically I would think that my reaction would be, I need to take time away and I need to like decompress before I can get back out on the ice. But for some reason, like losing that Olympic game the way we did was just like fire. Like it just, crazy.
And then you come back, you've got another year in the CWHL, and that turns out to be your last year in the CWHL because of what happened to that league. Did you have any inclination that that was going to happen?
Oh gosh, no, not at all. We had no idea. That blindsided all of us. I don't think one person in the league would have expected that to have been the reality for our league. It was growing so much over the last, I think 12 or 15 years. So we were blindsided by it, but looking back, it was probably in our best interest for that to happen, because as I mentioned before, some of the resources and the professionalism of the league just wasn't there. And like, we almost needed a fresh slate to like build the league that the players know will be successful in the future. So it's taken some time to get to that point. We're still not there yet, but I think by starting from ground zero again and finding the right sponsors and partners to work with us to create a sustainable league is ultimately going to be like the best thing for our sport.
So obviously when that league does collapse, you've got a few options. You could go and play in the NWHL. You could go play abroad, because I know people play in China and things like that. Why did you go with the PWHPA?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with the PWHPA is I liked the mission, and I liked the idea that the players were going to fight for what the future of the sport needs, and how the format needs to look in order for us to be successful and for us to actually feel like we're professionals and the future is going to be bright. So uniting as, players across North America and some of the Europeans was special. It was like bigger than just ourselves. So there was a lot of meaning behind joining the PWHPA. And like I mentioned, we're still not where we want to be with it. But I think down the road, I don't know, give it 5 years, I think it's going to look pretty promising for the future of women's hockey.
Well, you've got that. You've got this whole set of trailblazers who are signed up with the PWHPA. You're obviously, the heads of it are obviously in communication with the NHL, because I've seen the like releases and statements where the NHL just don't want to. They want to get involved. They don't want to be. I know their party line or whatever it is they don't want to be seen as bullying other leagues out, sort of thing. That's the common phrase that I keep seeing everywhere.
Yeah, no, there's been great talk. Obviously, with COVID, it's been a little bit of a stall in terms of like our communication with the NHL. But we've been in communication with NHL organizations and the league head office, and they are showing their support for women's hockey. And I do believe that down the road, they do want to invest in it in a larger way than they are right now. It's just the timing has to be right, and it doesn't, a league doesn't happen overnight at the same time. So we realize that you do have to be patient in some situations, but having like the couple or 20 of the women at the NHL All-Star this year was a huge platform for us. And it just shows that they are going to invest in our game in different ways.
Now, you mentioned it, I was about to bring it up, NHL All-Star weekend. how did it work how does it work? How did you get picked? What goes into the process of getting picked for that to play in that?
Yeah, so I think there was like a board of 4 female like legends that played the game back in the day who helped select the 20 women that would go down to the NHL All-Star weekend. On the Canadian side, I think it was Haley Wickenheiser and Cassie Campbell, and then Cami Granato and Angela Ruggiero on the American side. So they selected the players that would go down, and that was a pretty cool opportunity.
So when you get notified that you're going to go and play in that, is that another one of those, I can't believe this is going to happen moments?
No, for sure. Like probably even more so. Like I don't think I even would have ever thought I would be down at the NHL All-Star event and having an opportunity to display the women's game down there. So that was like wow, like this is pretty neat. Like this is a first for any woman, right? So that was neat, and it was cool to be able to go alongside teammates, which was cool.
And the thing is, you're doing it in front of that arena was full. There were barely any empty seats in there. And it was also very loud and also very pro-USA. You didn't get a lot of cheers when the Team Canada scored.
Yeah, that was crazy. It was very like USA, which was nuts. But like you mentioned, what was so cool about that event was that the women were slotted like right in the middle of the Friday night skills of the NHL players. So it was like the spotlight was like totally on us. Like we were on national television. We were like the stands were filled because it was right in the middle. So like it gave us exposure that we would have never gotten before, because there's a whole nother market of individuals who only watch the men's game and they've never been exposed to the women's game. Largely because we're not on TV often. So they never have the opportunity to watch us and to see our skill level. So that night was special because you had people in the stands and people on TV who were watching the NHL skills event. And then here come 20 of the best women in the world who are putting their skill out there on the line. So I think we got a great exposure for the women's game and a lot of respect, which was super, super cool to see how, when you're given spotlight like that, like what you can accomplish.
I think anyone took more advantage of that spotlight than both of the netminders either.
Oh my gosh, weren't they amazing? Oh, like we couldn't score. Next time we have to tell them, okay, you need to let us score a little more goals so it's even more entertaining.
Well, it was entertaining nonetheless.
Yeah, they were the MVPs.
It's
yeah, exactly.
And you mentioned it's on national television, and on commentary, you've got Jim Hewson, who's one of the voices of Hockey Night in Canada. How important, I'm going to say it's very important for a guy like that to be saying your name, to be saying Natalie Spooner's name, because this is a guy who regularly commentates on Austin Matthews, on Elias Pettersson. To hear your names come out of his mouth is huge for the audience watching it.
Definitely, 100%. Like to have I guess similarity across like the platforms, like you said, like the same person broadcasting the men's and this women's event, like shows that he knows us as players, and like so should the general public. So I think that was great, that the way that was done. And I think it was just overall the weekend was like incredible. We were given so many opportunities to grow our sport at a national level, internationally, I guess, which was pretty cool.
There's a really cool shot in the broadcast footage of, I think it's David Pastrnak, who's like up against the glass just watching the game. What interactions did you have with NHL players like before and afterwards?
Yeah, so the way the rink was set up, like our dressing room was right across the hallway from I think it was the West. Yeah, like the Western Conference All-Stars. So we were passing them like all the time, and they were awesome. Like I think they were really excited that we were there too. And after we finished our game, the guys went back out on the ice, and we were able to join them out on the ice and watch the skills event. And it was really fun to hear their reactions. All of them said that they had it on if they were not watching it at the glass, they had it on in the TVs in the dressing room. And they were watching our game, which was pretty cool. a lot of them have expressed their support for us in the past. I mean, they know the game, and they can respect the talent in the plays that are done. So they're awesome for us, and I think it was huge to have their support. And I think there was even some publicly written statements from the NHL players supporting us, which is huge.
And one of the cool things that the NHL does as well, I know this from, I saw an interview with Mitch Marner. He said that the NHL players weren't allowed to be a distraction during your game. Like, they couldn't be in the corridors, like where you walk down to the ice and stuff. They had to be out of the way. So it was all about you guys on the ice.
Oh, I had never heard that before, but that's really cool. I did not know that. Yeah, that's what they were all doing, and I didn't realize that actually makes a lot of sense. And yeah, but they still watched it, which was great. But that's kind of cool to hear. I've never heard that before.
And then one of the things in that game as well is women's hockey players don't play a lot of 3-on-3. How was that experience for you on that stage in front of that many people?
It was tiring. No, it was different. But yeah, I think at the IHF level, they just changed it to 3-on-3 overtime for preliminary games. So
that next World Championships, you
yeah,
were going to play it.
Yeah, exactly. So it was pretty new to us. But yeah, like I mentioned, we had 3 lines. So there was 9 players and a goalie per team. So like we were going all the time. Like I remember you'd come off the bench and you'd sit down, and then like you were up next right away, and it was crazy. But it was a lot of fun. I think if we were to do it again, it would be like even more competitive, just like now that we're used to the style of 3-on-3. Like it's a lot more possession based, but at the same time, like you need to bring the puck to the net. I think the women, we got like carried away a little bit with like maintaining possession rather than like trying for chances. So that's maybe why our scores weren't as high as like sometimes the men's 3-on-3 at the All-Star event. But yeah, it was fun, but yeah, definitely tiring on the legs and the lungs.
There's a moment in the second period of that where we've mentioned it before. Natalie Spooner gets a breakaway, and rather than trying to shoot, she tries to do a lacrosse move 1-on-1 and completely misses the puck. And I asked you if you would chirp one of your teammates to start at the start of this. Now, what did you say to her after that?
I remember that. I don't know if I said it to her, but I was like, Spoons, she would go for that. Funny thing is for the 2 weeks prior for us going down to the All-Star event, she was practicing that move all the time in practice. And she had mentioned that if she had the opportunity, or she was like, someone needs to do it at the skills event, because players in the NHL had been doing it this year. So she was like, it would be so cool if one of us like pulled it off in the game. It would have been sweet if she pulled it off, but Spoons.
So I just watched that.
I give her credit, though. I give her credit.
Oh, it takes stones to do that.
So I give her credit.
Yeah, that's a bold move in front of a big crowd.
Yeah.
Did you get to keep your jersey from that then, or did they auction those off?
No, we got to keep them, which is
cool.
Is awesome, because I'll definitely get that one framed, because that's a special one.
And then obviously after that, pretty soon after, all the COVID stuff starts to. Well, a year down the line, COVID stuff starts to happen and things. So what have you been doing in the meantime since then?
Yeah, what a turn of events. We went from like being in crowds like that to now being isolated in our homes. So it's been crazy, but yeah, it's actually been refreshing in some ways to have like a slower pace to life. For the past, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, we've been on the road a ton, traveling a lot, and you don't get to spend too much time at home. So it was nice to be able to relax and spend time with my family. But it did obviously provide some obstacles from a training perspective, some off-ice training. I had to get creative. I think I was doing chin-ups on a tree branch for a while. It was really hard to get your hands on any workout equipment. So it was, definitely crazy, weird times, but we're all in this together, all around the world. Everyone's being impacted by it. So you just have to make do with what you have and the people around you, and we're gonna get through it. But yeah, definitely, some weird times.
Because I've got elite prospects open here. It's got you listed down as PWHPA for last year and the year coming up as well. Like you re-signed with them. Do you guys? And there's no stats on there. Do you guys play like games between each other, or just about training with each other in regions?
So last year was the first year of the PWHPA, and so there's different hubs, we call them, around North America. So last year there was a Calgary hub, there was 2 hubs in Toronto, Montreal, Minnesota, Boston, and Buffalo. So there's all these different hubs, and within your region, you train with those girls that live in that area. And then we have showcase events. So we've been pairing up with the NHL organization. So for instance, like the Philadelphia Flyers hosted one of our events, the Arizona Coyotes, Chicago Blackhawks have hosted us this year. So we head to that city, and for the weekend we play games. So and we play against other hubs. So like the Toronto hub would maybe play against Calgary and Minnesota when we're down there. So we do play games. I don't think they were keeping track of stats just because everyone was playing different amount of games last year. And you also played like games regionally within like we would just take a bus to Montreal and play games sometimes. So it wasn't really a league format. But this coming year should be interesting with the COVID restrictions. Like you mentioned, having crowds probably won't be an option. So I'm not sure what the year is going to look like. There's a lot up in the air and a lot of uncertainty for the year coming. But yeah, it should be another great year. Hopefully maybe come January we can have more structure.
Yeah. Is it just a case of hopping on Zoom in group chats with teammates, and is that how you're all keeping together sort of thing?
Yeah, definitely. I think we have like weekly phone calls with our Hockey Canada group just to stay connected and make sure, everyone's feeling like they still have something to train for. So that's been good. But yeah, a lot of Zoom calls. It's a new reality.
If I'd known 6 months ago, this is what I would have invested in. I can tell you that now.
Honestly, we all would have, I think.
This and like Netflix, Amazon Prime, anything digital and streaming.
Honestly, yeah, it's crazy.
And then obviously you're only 25. You've got a lot of hockey left in you. When you look back at what you've done so far and how far you've come, what moments stand out to you as particularly special?
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope I have a lot more hockey in me. Yeah, looking back, some moments that stand out for me. I definitely say, like, we went over some of the big ones for me, like winning that Clarkson National Championship is one that will always stick out to me. Trying to think of some of my minor hockey ones. When I look back on like minor hockey things, it's mainly just like the teammates that I have, and I still have like a great relationship with like a lot of those players I played with. So I think something that I'll always look back on is like the memories that I had with some of the girls. Some other moments that were like some pretty big ones.
It's a tough question on the spot.
It is a tough question. Well, we talked about a lot of the like main ones for sure. I'm trying to think if there's like one that is like you wouldn't guess it, but it's like sticks out to me.
One where you block a shot in a big game at college sort of thing, or you...
Yeah, as a defenseman, I don't really have those big glory goal moments, but
I'm sure
I think another one.
I'm sure your first goal for Team Canada stands out to you in your memory.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That's one for sure. Definitely, that stands out. And I think another one that stands out for me, we talked about like wearing the Team Canada jersey for the first time, but I think wearing the Clarkson jersey for the first time was special for me. I'll never forget that first game we played. We actually played against St. Lawrence, and before that game, I had told my parents like just so you know, like I probably am not going to get a lot of ice time. Like I'm just a freshman, like so don't expect me to be out on the ice a lot. And that game started, and I was like double shifted right away. So that's a game that'll stick out to me as well.
Not bad for your first game as a defenseman.
Yeah.
And then when you look back at it all, obviously hockey's giving you these incredible opportunities to play at the Olympics, play at the NHL All-Star game. What does hockey mean to you?
That's a great question. hockey.
Finally, it took me an hour and
means,
I've got
like,
a great one.
yeah. Like if I were to describe like hockey, I guess in like one word, I think I would say like family. Like just looking back on all my years of playing hockey and like the community that it provides, it's like a second family, from your teammates to your coaching staff to the other teams you play. Like there's just a connection. Like when you meet someone else who plays hockey, you have that connection right away. So I think it's provided me with like endless opportunities to grow as a person and a player, but also like has connected me with so many people that I'll always have those memories of, and still have those relationships with people. So I'd say like that's the biggest thing for me is really those relationships that it's provided.
And then kind of a big question as well is like, obviously a part of being a member of the PWHPA is wanting to leave a legacy, because that is eventually what that group is going to do. What legacy does Renata Fast want to leave for young girls, because even young boys playing hockey down the line?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the legacy that I would want to leave is it doesn't matter like where you come from or like the people in front of you, like what they've done. Like you can write your own story. Like I mentioned, for me, like would my parents have ever thought I would have played hockey growing up? Absolutely not. But I, was given that opportunity and I made the most out of it. And I think the legacy I'd want to leave is just like, if you're passionate about something, follow it, because you really can achieve things you never thought maybe were possible with that hard work. And that's kind of the same messaging that we're providing with that PWHPA in terms of creating that league. Is like, we have a mission and we know where we want to be, so we're fighting for that.
And from when I spoke to Sarah, I don't know if it's blissful ignorance on my part, but I didn't know until I spoke to Sarah that like you guys were like had to buy your own stick tape. I didn't know that. I just presumed that you would just get that, but I didn't know that even that was a thing that you had to do.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's always a fight. Like, who has sock tape or who has stick tape that I can borrow? But people are like protective of their tape because they're like, I bought this myself. So yeah, we have to, that's something that hopefully one day we don't have to buy our own, or we have someone who can sharpen our skates. Because right now, like if I take them to the local guy to sharpen my skates, they're like, I can't even skate because the sharpening is just not great. So it's just like small resources like that we're lacking right now in the women's game that like really doesn't make it feel professional. So I think that's something that we're definitely pushing for.
And have you managed to get back on the ice yet? Or because you're seeing like rinks open up in certain places, have you managed to get back out there? And what was your first skate back out there like?
I felt like Bambi. No, it's great to get back out on the ice. I've only been a couple times, easing myself into it a bit. But when you've been off the ice for so long, your hips are a little bit sore. But no, it's great to get back out there. It makes you feel like things are going to get back to normal here soon. So definitely promising.
Well, I can't thank you enough for the time you've given up. You got up early. You're probably the earliest person who's ever got up to do one of these with me. So thank you very much for that. And I'd like very much for you to end this on the funniest story that you would say you've had in hockey. What's the funniest thing you've been involved in that's made you laugh the most? And this show doesn't count.
Yeah, this show. Thing that's made me laugh the most in hockey. That's a good question. I don't know if I can think of one single thing, one single moment made me laugh the most. I mean, there's so many, but if I were to think of one, well, it's happened multiple times, but like on road trips with my team, sometimes we'll leave a restaurant, the team bus will leave the restaurant, and we've left our teammates at the restaurant before and like not realized for like a while, and then been like, where is like Ratty? And then we're like, oh my gosh, she's still at the restaurant, like she went to the washroom. So like just little things like that, memories with teammates that like you laugh forever, and not even hockey related, but just team related.
One thing I've just thought of is, and I wanted to ask this: do you ever foresee a situation where women don't wear cages when they're playing hockey, and would you wear a visor instead of a cage? Because obviously seeing someone's face is a big deal. That's how it helps you identify with them.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to lose my teeth. But it has been tossed around before, like asking if we'd wear visors for TV purposes, because like you mentioned, it's easier to connect with players when you see their actual face. But I could see us moving to maybe like a fishbowl rather than a visor first, just because well, one of the biggest things I'd say is like the guys, they're like it would happen with the women eventually, but they're so conscious of each other's face with their sticks, like because they need to be. Whereas like in the women's game, you're wearing a full cage, so like you can be a little bit more reckless with like where your stick goes, and like because it doesn't matter if it hit, you don't even realize if you hit someone in the face because it just hits a cage, right? So it would take some getting used to, and I don't know how people would like breaking their nose and their teeth, but we'll see. I think I could see like a face shield, like a bubble happening before a visor for sure.
Because that's one of the things that's attributed to the NBA becoming the fastest growing sport in the world. And then the WNBA getting to the level that's got at is because they're just out there in vests and shorts, and that's it. Like whereas in hockey, you've got the helmet on, you've got the pads, you've got gloves. You're all. It's harder to kind of like show who you are, even with something as silly as a hairstyle. It's harder in hockey than it is in like basketball.
No, it's so true. It's really true. It's hard to connect with players when you don't see their face, or even like when people have all their pads on and their helmet on, even if you have like certain body motions or like body language, it's hard to see it. So it's like hard to really connect with players. Everyone kind of just looks the same. So that does make sense. And I definitely agree that helps from a fan side of things.
So, like I said before, now I'm going to go back to what I said a minute ago. Guys, thank you so much for all of your time. And I hope we get to see you in Nottingham at some point, because that would be awesome.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. Had a blast, and good luck with everything. I'll be cheering.